The first simulation is the FloraPark simulation, which is also known as the supply chain flower game, right? For teaching supply chain collaboration by contracts. Now, this is an important topic for almost every supply chain management program, but very hard to teach, right? It is also a supply chain function needed by almost every company because you need to negotiate or deal with your supplier and customers. And so it cannot be replaced by AI because it deals with contract negotiation and trust building. Now, let me start with the question of why FloraPark. Right. Specifically, how is the game different from the beer game? I'm sure everybody heard about the beer game. Then I will talk about learning objectives and teaching plans, specifically how to integrate this game into existing cost structures. I also shared feedbacks from instructors and students, and finally, I will show you the game interface if time permits. Okay, why FloraPark? Okay, there's an enormous literature, right, on supply chain collaboration by contracts, right? But much fewer teaching materials are developed, right, to really transfer this knowledge from universities to practice. The beer game is one of them, right? It simulates order quantities in non-competing supply chains. Because of this setup, right, collaboration on quantities makes sense. And so the beer game, right, is all about handshaking. However, in reality, right, trading partners are negotiating, right, not only quantities, right, but also price. Right, when price is introduced, then conflict of interest is introduced. So the trading partners start backstabbing, which is completely missing from the beer game, right? So we created the flower game, right, to simulate not only the handshaking, but more importantly, the backstabbing. The flower game has two new features and make it completely different from the beer game. The first is the partners are negotiating not only quantities, but price, right? And second, the supply chains, right, are competing against each other in the same market. So this setup, right, presents a much more realistic and intriguing situation, right? On one hand, right, external competition force the trading partners to collaborate, otherwise they will lose. On the other hand, right, a conflict of interest will force them into self-interested actions. And this paradox points to the fundamental issues, right, in supply chain collaboration, which make the true collaboration so difficult, right? Because people have to decide how to collaborate, that is handshaking, with each other and also fight against each other in the same time. Here is the learning objective of the game, right? It's very simple, how to manage the trading partnership, right, to go from backstabbing to win-win, right? Now, let's break it down a little bit more. So specifically, the FloraPark simulation or the flower game is a supply chain strategy game, right? So students will experiment, right, different price and quantity contracts, right, to learn how to go from backstabbing to win-win. And second, this is a total business game, right, and provides students the C-suite team perspective. And so students will make not only supply chain decisions, but also marketing decisions. And finally, right, negotiation and teamwork. So the game provides, right, intensive negotiation practice, right, for students. Here are the key lessons, right, philosophically. If you fight your partners, either suppliers or customers, your supply chain cannot win. Right, so live as one or die as two. And even if your supply chain wins, you may not, right? So you may sacrifice yourself for your partner's success. So the key lesson here is that you're not really optimizing for the supply chain. You're optimizing for yourself. So you must find a way to win-win.